Hi, and welcome to Helping Support Biological Families, a training for resource parents presented by VMS Family Counseling Services and the Building Successful Families program. Training goals. Resource parents will demystify myths of biological parents and will have a better understanding of their own role. Resource parents will understand the importance of biological families in foster child's life. Resource parents will know what shared parenting and mentoring biological families will look like. And resource parents will learn engagement strategies to help support biological families and your foster child. Now let's look at a myth and a fact. Myth: only children that are beaten and abused by their parents come into foster care. Fact is that many children in care are children that have experienced maltreatment and neglect. And so why is this? Well, sadly, many battered children and sexually molested children are placed in foster care for their safety. These are not the only reasons why children are removed from their birth parents' home. In many cases, the reason for removal is not outright abuse, but abuse by the way of neglect. Neglect can happen for a number of reasons. A parent may have a drug addiction that causes them to think of a little else but getting high. Although this is increasingly the reason for children who are coming into foster care, children may go hungry or be without clean clothing for other reasons as well, including poverty. Birth parents who work jobs when benefits like sick days are not offered may feel they need to go to work no matter what in order to provide for their families. Despite birth parents may sometimes leave their children at home alone or in a locked car outside their job site when there is no family member or friend to babysit and they are unable to afford childcare. While they are not intentionally neglecting their children, in fact, in their mind, they're doing just the opposite. These actions can lead to child welfare caseworkers to be called and the children go into foster care. Other reasons why children might experience maltreatment and neglect is if a parent is suffering from a mental illness and maybe doesn't know it. So the parent may not be meeting the child's daily needs, such as feeding them, taking them to school, and other necessary needs that children need to thrive. Myth: all birth parents of foster children are criminals. Facts: actually, only 2% of incarcerated fathers and 8 to 10% of mothers have children in foster care. About 15 to 20% of children entering the child welfare system have incarcerated parents. About 1 in every 5 African American child who comes to the attention of child welfare agencies have a recent arrest parent, compared to only 1 in 10 white children and only 1 in 20 Hispanic children. Even if a parent is incarcerated, doesn't necessarily mean that they are a hard or violent criminal. Some parents have been incarcerated for failure to pay parking tickets or been associated with individuals, neighbors, friends, or family who are involved in illegal activities. It's a fact that some children are placed in foster care when a birth parent goes to jail. When we hear the word jail, we automatically think of a major and probably violent crime, such as abusing children, committing murder, robbing a bank, or other aggressive crimes. But there are many other reasons that someone could go to jail, including something as dangerous as too many unpaid tickets that they were simply just had no money to pay. Myth: parents whose kids are in foster care don't love their children. Fact: majority of parents love their children and are doing the best that they can with what they know. They often make poor decisions due to lack of appropriate parenting skills, lack of support or resources, and or other contributing issues such as substance abuse or mental illness. These barriers prevent them from providing a safe home for their children. Sometimes birth parents cannot raise the children safely, not because they have an addiction or because they themselves are abusers, but simply because they need knowledge and experience to meet their children's special and medical needs. when a child's medical needs are so overwhelming that they require 24/7 special care. They are sometimes placed in foster care with foster parents specifically trained in caring for medically fragile children. The children may have issues like prune belly syndrome and maple syndrome urine disease, which are uncommon and, if not cared properly, can cause the child to die. These foster parents then assist in training the birth parents in how to care for their child and keep them safe. Once the birth parents have mastered caring for the child in accordance with the child's welfare system, they welcome them home and often spend the rest of their lives caring for them. Here's another myth. Kids with good foster or adoptive parents don't need their birth parents. And the fact is, the more satisfied individuals are with their level of contact post-adoption, the more adjusted adopted adolescents and emerging adults are. No matter what the reason comes into foster care, the goal, whenever possible, is to reunite birth parents and their children. Even when foster children cannot return home, it's important for foster parents to never talk badly about their birth parents.
This is like coming onto the Ray Martin show or something like that. Do you remember who Ray Martin is?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah.
and
Oh, this is cool. Yeah.
Sarah, take one.
wonderful.
So my name's Sarah, I'm 28 years old.
I'm Alison. As Mum describes me, I'm special. I don't know if that's special in a good way or a bad way.
My name's Ainsley. I'm a mother of 5 kids.
I have 3 children and I'm just trying to live my life until my children come home.
2 have been taken, still got 3 teenage girls at home.
My name's Kirsty.
I'm Zoe.
And I'm Jay.
I have 2 kids, one in care and one self-placed at home. It was about 10 years ago that I lost my children.
It's been 2.5 years since my kids were taken, my little ones. It was my ex that harmed them, so we've been fighting ever since to get them home.
I lost them due to domestic violence and smoked marijuana and drank alcohol.
I've had 6 kids. Katie, Angus and Gypsy are in long-term care. Me and their father were in a domestic violence relationship.
I've got 3 beautiful children. They're currently in care. They were in foster care but have recently moved to kin care.
Dakota is 9 and she's in the process of being adopted into the family of her foster parents. Cruz used to live with Dakota, but he's now in heaven. He passed away at 3.5 from cancer. And I also have Levi, who's 4 in September, and he's in my care.
I knew my children would be removed,
But I didn't care.
that's not necessarily true.
I cared a lot, cried myself to sleep for a long time.
Yes, I did care that they were getting removed. It broke my heart, broke my family's heart.
In the end, I knew he was going to be removed, but then the drugs just took over my life and I didn't do anything about that.
I knew my actions would have consequences. It's just that I was addicted. I had an addiction and my addiction took over my life.
Harvey was actually taken from me in the hospital, and that's when I knew that I had to do whatever I possibly could to get my little boy back.
I thought that I might have another chance, so I think you never hold out hope that your kids are going to be taken away from you. But unfortunately that was the outcome, and I think it was probably for the best.
Unfortunately, it did cost me the things that I love the most in this world. It cost me my children. I can never take that back, but I have changed my life around. So saying that I didn't care, that's an understatement. I did care. I just didn't think it would happen to me.
I had a bad labour and I had to go down to theatre. And they came to take him while I was in theatre, but they didn't because I wasn't there to sign the birth certificate. So they waited for me to come back from theatre, and they just took him out of my arms. And it just destroyed me completely.
Sorry.
It's okay, take your time.
most painful thing I had to go through, really, to lose your kids. Can't explain it, to be honest. I still had 3 at home, but it was like I lost the world. It still does.
When your child was removed from your care, you stopped thinking about them. Not true. You think about them all the time.
Not a second went by that I stopped thinking about them. Every second of the day.
Probably thought about them even more because you missed them and was yearning for them, so.
No, you never stop thinking about your children and you never stop loving them no matter where they are.
Birth parents don't ever have a good relationship with foster carers.
I think it can be strained, the relationships.
I have a great relationship with both the kids' carers because mine have been separated now.
At first you hold a lot of resentment, I think, towards people that they've got your children and not you.
You've got to get past having a grudge, holding a grudge, I think, because you've got to think, well, why was this child taken away? There's obviously a reason.
We're kind of more like friends, really. We communicate through messages and stuff like that.
And his carers are just great. Like, they have done so much for him, and I am so blessed that it was them that Harvey was placed with.
It kind of gives you that ease to knowing that they're being well looked after.
It benefits the child so much. Like, our little boy is just so blessed having them in his life and, you know, us.
You just need to learn your boundaries, and I think that's therefore if foster parents and birth parents can't keep their boundaries in place, I think that's where the relationship diminishes. But no, you can have a good relationship with foster carers. I had a great relationship, and then because there was boundaries not kept in place, that's when things start to slide downhill.
You stopped visiting your child because you didn't have a bond.
Never missed a visit. Never missed a second that I could spend with my children.
I've never stopped visiting my children.
Every case conference they ask you what you want. First thing, more time with my children.
Absolutely, I didn't have a bond with James.
I did lose the bond with Addison. It was very hard at the start. She would cry every time we would see her.
He was taken away a few hours after he was born, so of course I didn't have time to spend like, you know, parents do with their children to, you know, create a bond. But I love seeing him and love watching him grow. He's grown up so much.
To this day now, she gets that excited when she does see me and runs up to me and mummy, mummy, mummy kind of thing.
We tried to have contact as much as we could until we went to rehab, which we done 6 months rehab. So we would come out of rehab and see, you know, Harvey and then go back.
The love's very evident the second that you embrace each other on a visit, and especially when you have to say goodbye.
My child is best in my care.
That's not always true. I was affected by drugs. I was let in to live in an inadequate household.
Yes and no. I've seen my kids be happy where they are, and they're happy, they're healthy, they're well looked after. I don't intend on trying to get them back in my care.
The best thing that ever happened to me was the children going into foster care, because I needed that wake-up call.
I wouldn't have said it 2 years ago because I wasn't as strong as what I am now.
The children just weren't safe with me. I was addicted. I was just not a great mum. But I've turned my life around, and I believe that the children will be best in my care in the end.
We are his biological parents, I guess, yeah.
And we're better now.
I know I did wrong by not standing up for my children at the time. And now I'm ready to have them home.
If we weren't better, I would have, you know, left Harvey where he was better off, but I feel that he's better off with us now because we are his parents, and we have done so much to be where we are today.
Now I can say that I've back to who I used to be, so me and my daughter have a lovely relationship and a lovely life, so, but it wasn't always true.
People have asked me before if I should go, now that I'm clean and that, should I go and get custody of the other kids? But I don't think it's fair.
I don't think James is best in my care because he's never lived with me before. He's never been in my care, and to be honest, I wouldn't know how to look after him.
Especially with Dakota, she's been with them since the day she was born, and she's now 9. It's the only family she's ever known, so I don't think she'd be best in my care. Not because I wouldn't look after her, but that's her home where she lives now.
Taking him away from where he is now would really stress him, and I don't think that would be a very good thing at all. You've got to be a bit selfless, you've got to think of other people other than yourself.
I feel respected by carers. Yeah, I definitely do.
With my children's first lot of foster carers, there was no respect at all.
I could say one of the carers no, sorry, but a few things happened there, but Lachlan had been moved from those carers.
I think when it comes to respecting parents and foster carers have to learn that they're not their birth parents. They're not their birth parents. You have to support their birth parents. You can't go against them. You have to work together, because if you can't work together, it's not going to work.
The ones that I've got now, the kids have got photo albums, you know what I mean? So they let my kids have anything that I give them. So I feel like that, they respect that. They know that I'm their mum still.
I do really feel respected by the carers, and we respect them very much.
For me, I don't think it's about respect. It's really boils down to treat people how you want to be treated, I think, more than anything.
Seeing other carers parent my children gets easier. Yes. And no.
No, it doesn't. Sorry, but no, it doesn't.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So the biggest struggle throughout this I've had is watching other carers and watching other people get to be parents to my children.
When I met them and Dakota was like, "Mummy," to her, and but it gradually did get easier because I could see that really was her mum. Like, there's a difference between being a mother and a mum, and I'm Dakota's mother, but that's her mum. It gets easier, I think, anyway.
You just got to realise that they're there 24/7 with your children. They're the ones putting in the new boundaries for your children, and they're the ones making the new rules for your children.
It was hard at the very start, I guess, because, no one ever wants their children to be taken out of their care.
I don't think it gets easier. I think you just start to accept it, especially when you can see what such a good job they're doing.
I come to very quickly, once I knew that the carers were taking good care of my children while I couldn't, so it got easier. It does get easier.
If you can get a little bit at ease with other people parenting your children and overlook your own problems again, you're putting your children first.
That's how life is, and you just got to learn to accept it, like other things in life. Just learn to accept things, which takes time.
That's what being a mum's all about, putting your children first. Sometimes it hurts, sometimes it sucks, but that's what it is.
The one thing I want my children to know is I never gave up on them.
I've never stopped thinking about them, loving them, caring for them while they're not in my care, and that I'll never stop doing everything I can to get them home with me and the girls.
The one thing I want my child to know is that I love him.
I love them more than anything in the world.
That I think he's in the best place he can possibly be.
And I will continue to do whatever I can for them to have everything and just be okay and happy and safe and healthy.
The one thing I want my children to know is that I'm sorry. If I could change the things I did, I probably wouldn't, because I wouldn't be the mum I'm going to be when you're at home.
I just want them to know that I love them more than my own life, and I'll spend the rest of my life in ensuring that they know how very much I love them and how very, very sorry I am for causing them the traumatic experiences that I've put them through.
One piece of advice I have for carers would be take a step in the parents' shoes. This is hard. This is hard enough as it is, without having without having foster carers that ain't going to be there, that ain't going to do the whole 9 yards for them children.
Make sure those kids do realise that they still have a mum or dad that does care a lot about them.
Put them children first, not your needs, not anything else, them children. If you're going to open your house up for them children, they need to come first.
I think it's important that the children see that the parents are comfortable, that the carers are comfortable, and it creates a loving environment for the children.
Try not to judge the birth parents, because every situation is different. we're not all bad people. For some people, it's just the situation that they were in.
They don't need to see the tension and feel that they can't be loved by everybody, because the more love, the better for a child, I think.
The one piece of advice I'd give to parents with children just being removed, first off, you have to take responsibility.
Do a lot of the courses that they ask. I mean, they've really helped me.
Don't let the guilt and shame anchor you. Don't be in a boat, don't let it anchor you. Be in a car, let it drive you. Let it get you there to the end.
I know a lot more now with the courses, and I kind of wish that I did them before, really, to be honest.
Build a bond with the foster carers.
If you go and put in the hard work, it is possible for your children to be restored.
I'd just say don't give up, but make sure that you're doing everything you can to make sure that you don't do it again.
Do everything that Docs asks of you, or even beyond what Docs, like if they say you need to go to rehab and then do drug and alcohol counselling, or just keep trying.
It's all about taking responsibility. You have to take responsibility in order to grow. You have to, because without that, there's no shine.
It's important to understand that there might be some pros and cons when it comes to working with bio parents. And it's important to acknowledge those feelings and those thoughts. So I want you to take a few seconds to write this down. What are your concerns about working with the birth parent? Write 3 concerns about having contact with a biological family. And I also want to keep in mind that this is just you being honest. This is not you making you a bad person or thinking bad about the bio parent. We're simply holding space and giving you an opportunity to reflect on those concerns, because those concerns are valid. We know that it's very important to keep in mind that there is no competition when it comes to foster care. Nobody wins when a child has been removed from his or her home. No matter what decisions are made at the end, no matter what side you may be on, forget those words, win and keep or lose, and forget the phrase on our side. The children are what matters. This is incredibly difficult to live out day to day, especially when, like us, you are a foster adopt home and are hoping and praying for an outcome in which you adopt a child, or maybe a child can stay with you in the long run. Again, we know that the ultimate goal of the child welfare system is reunification. And it's important to keep a positive outlook, positive mindset, and try to have a positive relationship with the parent. So I'll give you a few seconds to write down your concerns and an opportunity to reflect on them.
I have worked with bio parents, and I have to say that when I first began working with bio parents, I was very judgmental towards them. I had a really bad attitude towards them because I blamed them for their children having to come into the system of care. But I soon learned that we can't judge the biological families, because the majority of them have not maybe had the support system and have not been taught the techniques and everything that they need to be good parents. I always try to make the playing level the same. We are on the same team, and you are the mother of that child. I am just a caregiver for right now while we try to get you healthy and capable and, you know, back on your feet to take in the child. And it can be very rewarding to not just help this child, but to help that entire family unit, come back together and then see them succeed, as they go forth in their jobs and as parenting and everything. I had an aha moment. I did. Actually, I probably had a few of them, but one in particular, this mom, I just knew that she had made a bad choice, and a very bad choice. And because of that choice, she lost her 3 children, for temporarily. But as I watched her work her case plan and do everything so hard and so fast, I was so proud of her because, again, I knew that she really didn't have a support system. And so I felt like I was becoming her support system. Even though she wasn't much younger than me, I was almost like a mom to her, to help her and to encourage her. And that's what they need. They need to know that somebody is in their corner, to cheer them on and to be there for them if they have a setback or something, that we can be there for them to rely on. All right, I'm going to tell you something. You may not like this and you may not want to hear it or use it, and this will give you an insight into me. Well, yeah, it is. It's kind of a personal thing. I hope I don't cry. Okay, I have an adult daughter who has made some bad decisions and ended up in Florida State Prison. And as I would talk with her, as I would go and visit her, in the prison, and I would get to know some of these other women, I would look around and I would think, these are the mothers of the kids that I'm caring for, And it really made me look at everything differently. And I think the main thing is that I would tell my daughter, you have me. I'm your greatest fan. I'm in your corner. But 99% of these young women in here, they don't have anyone because it's generational, usually, that has put them where they're at. And that was a big aha. And I know that because of what I went through with my daughter, it has helped me. Anything can happen to anybody, and it's helped me to see that, and it has helped me to understand these biological parents a lot more.
So now let's look at long-term foster care. This is the placing of a child in foster care for extended periods, perhaps even for the child's entire minority, in lieu of family reunification, termination, and adoption or guardianship. A big focus during this time would be to build the child's social capital and relationship permanency. The most successful youth who transition from foster care are those who have relationships with families who have adopted them emotionally, if not legally. So what does this look like? Bringing a parent whose parental rights have been terminated back into the life of a 17-year-old boy through therapy or spiritual counseling, convening community visits with extended families so they are more natural, allowing a child to go on field trips with other students, helping a teen attend prom from her school of origin, facilitating a child staying on the same soccer team or the same sports team, using Skype to keep a youth connected to relatives in another state. In reality, PPLA is about living arrangements and not about permanency for most youth. Typically, this has meant that we stopped working to find permanency for youth and instead start teaching life skills so that the youth could be independent at age 18. The problem with the perspective is that teaching life skills does not significantly improve the outcome for older youth in the areas of housing, delinquency, or pregnancy. Research in the area of the problem with this perspective is that teaching life skills is not improving the outcomes for older youth in the areas of housing, delinquency, or permanency. Research in the area of emerging adulthood, ages 18 to 25, indicates it is a social capital, and this is essential to successful outcomes for youth as they transition to adulthood. Social capital is a value that is created by investing in relationships with others through trust and reciprocity. For youth in foster care, social capital is comprised of all relationships the youth have in his or her life, including bio parents, siblings, foster families, friends, mentors, and others in the community. If we are able to focus on the value of preserving each youth's connection with bio families, friends, schools, and communities, we will be building their social capital, supporting lasting relationships, and teaching important intangible skills like boundary setting, communicating effectively, and problem solving. Now let's look at guardianship. This is when a person has legal custody and control over a child. They have the rights to make all decisions concerning the child. Even in guardianship, it's important to help establish connections with important individuals in the life of a child, which could include their coaches, their teachers, extended family members, siblings, mentors, and other important figures in their life. What does this look like? Maybe inviting bio parents to high school graduation, facilitating sibling visits and extended family visits, both in person, through social media, or by phone, or promoting participation in extracurricular activities such as sports, church, and community organizations. Now let's talk about adoption. Adoption is when a child in foster care whose biological parents' rights are terminated by a court and bringing it up as your own. Studies showed adoption children showed lower levels of externalizing behaviors as teens and adults when they were satisfied with the level of openness in adoption. Adolescents who meet their birth mothers reported positive feelings and no confusion about who their parents were. Increased level of communication was associated with a more coherent sense of adoptive identity for teens and adults. So what does this look like? Well, it means having an open adoption, allowing safe contact between child and biological children, parents, if this is what you choose. Also allowing a child to remain connected to grandparents, aunts, uncles, and siblings. And I do want to suggest, as long as you feel that they are safe and not putting the children in danger, and also promoting safe contact through visitation, creating a life book honoring child's biological family and adoptive family. And also living arrangements and not about permanency for most youth might be the option. Typically, this has meant that we stop working on finding permanency for youth and instead start teaching life skills so that youth can be independent at age 18. And this is in regards to young adults, adolescents that don't get adopted. But also when it comes to adoption, ultimately you decide what you prefer as far as the level of contact that a child will have with his or her biological family. I believe that once they turn at a certain age, they can definitely decide. So it is best that you're very open in the beginning about the adoption so that it doesn't hurt the child in the future. It's important to understand that birth parents will grieve the loss of their children. And oftentimes we relate grief as a death. However, this is not true. So it's important to become aware of the different stages of grief that parents might experience. At first, they might be shocked. So one of the things you can do if the opportunity is there is just start the conversation. And if they react in anger, we want to remind you not to take it personal. If the parents are on the protest stage, maybe you can assure birth parents that you will not harm their children. Be humble and understand that birth parents' anger is an expression of grief, so don't take it personal. You can also use reflective listening, and don't sell yourself as wonderful, superior, or as a child's salvation. Another thing that you can do is ask birth parents what questions they may have for you. Ask birth parents about their children. and develop an action plan for parenting the child together if the opportunity is there. Benefits of biological family connection. Why it's important. Separation process causes children to have many painful feelings, and this initially is a traumatic experience as well. How this helps. Continued connection can minimize those grief and loss issues, and these issues may result in children acting out, and these connections may prevent that. Anger, guilt, sadness, frustration, etc. Sometimes these feelings are acted out. Contact with the birth parents helps children get out of some of their feelings. So it should be expected that children will seem more upset before, during, or after a visit with their birth parents. The short-term disadvantage of the child being upset by the visit is outweighed by the long-term benefit. Benefits of biological family connection. Why it's important. Children are allowed to have contact and express all their upset feelings with their parents. How does this help? Well, they're less likely to displace feelings on you. They can develop positive relationship with their foster parents and establish healthy attachment with foster parents and other relationships. They will be less likely to take it out on you. They will be able to develop a positive relationship with the foster parents and develop that good attachment that will help them learn what it is to have healthy relationships. Benefits of biological family connection. This is important because regular contacts give the child several important messages. They can see that their parents are doing good and that they also care enough to visit them. And this also helps the child receive a better accurate view of their parents' limitations, and also it's an indicator of family reunification. The child can see that the parent cares enough to visit. Research in the child welfare system consistently indicates that regular visits between children and birth parents is the strongest indicator of family reunification. In some ways, children can sense what this research has demonstrated. If their parents don't show up for visits and don't follow through with plans, it helps the child to be able to see their limitations better. Benefits of biological family connections continued. Contact is also helpful for parents and foster parents. Regular contact with children, the biological parents get a realistic idea of their ability to parent their children. It can help foster parents understand that the child and the child's parents belong together, helping with transitions in the future. And also, foster parents can understand the child's behavior better. Research shows that more frequent contact a child has with their biological mother is related to lower levels of depression and lower externalized behaviors amongst foster children. Why does this help? Regular contact can help a child maintain a stable placement with the foster family due to lower externalized behaviors. Overall, children will have a better outcome with reduced mental health issues as a result of regular contact.
When I started shared parenting, it was, well, at first, there wasn't any shared parenting. We didn't even work with the birth parents. We didn't have contact with the birth parents. And I think a lot of it was out of protection, that the social workers feel like they were protecting the foster parents from maybe a birth parent showing up on their doorstep or at school. And so we didn't have anything to do with the birth parents. They said, just take care of the children. And of course, that was also at a time where they said, where the system was, don't get too close to the children either, you know. So, but then all that has changed. North Carolina, you know, came up with the shared parenting philosophy, which is, and it boils down to just something simple. Foster parent, birth parent, parenting the child together, with a social worker supporting that relationship. And so social workers are very much a part of starting it, supporting it, intervening when they need to if there's problems. But other than that, it's trying to build a relationship between the parents so that the child sees that all the parents that he has, foster and adoptive parents or caretakers, whichever you may call the foster parents, are parenting together. Just not one or the other. And foster parents really are the support of helping the birth parent start to build where they're doing more healthier parenting. And it's not forced on them, it's encouraged. It's built by trust where the birth parent wants to be healthier, and then start, to where they're parenting their child and their child goes home, which is reunification.
Now let's look at shared parenting and mentoring. What is shared parenting? What is mentoring? Resource parents should assist in helping the children and their biological families towards reunification when safety can be assured. Resource parents may also serve as models, teachers, or mentors to birth parents and children to prevent future neglect. By resource parents and birth parents sharing parenting, this increases communication and leads to better results for children. With shared parenting, resource parents are able to build alliances with the birth parents and others who have significantly relationships with the child. Resource parents and biological parents would greatly benefit from increased communication for the good of the children.
I'm Katie, and this is my husband, Jonathan. We have 4 kids. Emma was adopted domestically as an infant. Charlotte and Andrew we gave birth to, and Grayson was adopted from foster care.
Papa's doing stickers.
When we adopted Emma 10 years ago, we got licensed through Amara. And Amara really impressed upon us that it was our duty as the parents of an adoptee to make sure she had connection, if at all possible. It was really through knowing Emma's mom that brought us to doing foster care. We had gotten over the years to really know her and understand a lot more of the situation that kind of brought her to making the decision she did for Emma.
So we had this positive experience with Emma and her adoption situation, which kind of prepared us for being okay with doing this for Grayson's. Grayson is a gregarious little boy who seems to charm people immediately.
This thing went out of water. Oh my gosh, that thing awesome.
I love about Grayson is that he's just a fearless little guy. He loves everyone, he loves all his family members, and just an adventurous little climber, and he's a very smart little boy.
Grayson, to me, is someone who, you've seen, he's very boisterous in his walk, very proud of himself when he walks. He has a strut. He's had that strut since he was 2 years old. But I think that comes because of the family that surrounds him.
My life before Grayson, it wasn't the best at that point with his dad. He turned to a drug addict, and so it went downhill fast, and so it just cut up all at once.
I knew that he was not in a safe home at the time. I've never felt so helpless or scared the day that DSHS took Grayson and we didn't know what was going to happen. All these fears and dark thoughts that I had of where he might have ended up went away the moment that we met Katie.
The plan was to reunite, but then I decided that I knew I couldn't afford to take care of myself and Grayson at the same time, so we discussed doing an adoption. It was a very hard decision, but with Katie and her family, it was made easier because we discussed everything.
It was really, really super important to me to keep a mindset that that was Laura's son and not my son until the day she relinquished her rights and we adopted him, and then he became our son. And by ours, I mean Laura's and Jonathan's and mine's. And so Laura didn't get relegated to birth parent status just because she relinquished. She's still his parent.
Grayson chooses to call me Mama Laura, and so he's like, oh, I have 2 moms, and I have more family.
Over time, we just started spending more and more time with them. There's room to start small and then increase it as you feel more comfortable.
After the adoption we finalized, it became more open and honest, and we have communication from emails, phone calls, text message. They come to my sister's kids' birthday parties, we come to their birthday parties, we have Easter together, Christmas, Halloween.
I think several of our first meetings with Laura were at the mall. Public place, we could leave at separate times. It's okay to go ahead and start off somewhere. You can grow into this.
I think our situation is unique currently, but I don't think it has to be.
Grayson, you're very strong.
In general, there's a good understanding that kids deserve connection, kids deserve to know where they come from, kids deserve to know their history. But where the huge gap is how. And it took us 10 years of walking alongside Emma and her mom and then getting to know Grayson and his family to figure out the how.
My life has been enriched by knowing the Bryans and the family, and just having another support system for me as well. You think, oh, my kid's gonna love someone more than me. It's an understandable fear, it's just a different kind of love. It's a different kind of family. You have more people that will love your kid.
Now let's talk about reunification. We understand that the initial goal should be reunification. So what does supporting reunification look like? Well, this can include the bio parents at school and medical appointments, encouraging the child to write letters or create drawings for their parents, facilitating visits or transporting to and from visits, talking positively about the parents around the child, and working closely with parents in CFT meetings. There's also other ways that you can support the parents. For example, we had a foster parent once who was helping the bio mom with cooking. Bio mom did not know how to cook for her children, so the foster resource parent asked if it was okay if she went on a weekend that the children were going with her to help her and teach her how to cook. Luckily, the foster mom and the bio mom agreed, and the bio mom was very receptive to the experience. This is a simple and another creative way of how you can help bio parents.
My name is Sierra Lomax. My story of growing up in foster care isn't like most stories. I guess you could say I'm an anomaly. I had been placed in a great family who nurtured me and instilled good values. I was placed in the care of Linda Mitchell, Mommy Linda is what I call her, when I was only 5 months, and grew to love her as a mother and her children as my siblings. Although I had visits with my biological family very often, the transition back to my biological family did have its challenges. I had to learn a new environment, and I felt that I had to adjust quickly. At times, I felt homesick and had the struggles of trying to figure out which family I fit into the most. I was fortunate enough to stay close to my foster family, which isn't common in the system. Being able to contact my foster brothers and sister through the times when I felt overwhelmed helped my transition. My mom, Mary, is a strong woman. I admire the strength it took for her to fight for me. Yet she realized that my foster family became a part of me and she didn't want to push them away. I know it had to be difficult for her at first to fully understand the relationship that I had built with Linda and her family. There were many challenges, but we were able to overcome. I began to embrace the fact that I had 2 moms. I realized that I was blessed twice. I had 2 women to nurture me, to guide me, and to love me. I had 2 families that supported me, and I felt special. Throughout my life, many people would ask me if it's difficult to have 2 moms. I always say that at times, I felt I had to pick just one. But when it comes to the people that you hold in your heart, that's impossible to do. I have enough room in my heart that is able to love both of them unconditionally. I am proud of my families, and I hope that my story gives inspiration to many who are still within the foster care system.
My name is Mary Lomax. I'm the mother of Sierra. Sierra went into foster care at the age of 5 months. I was struggling with my addiction and tried desperately to stop. During the 5 years of Sierra being in foster care, she was placed with Linda Mitchell in a very nurturing and spiritual home. Over the course of time, I was able to have visits with Sierra. When Sierra was 3 years old, I began my journey of sobriety. It still was a struggle for the reunification process of her returning, and there were many challenges and obstacles. When Sierra was placed back into my care, the transition was a little difficult, but Linda and I began communicating to help the process. We had some ups and downs with our relationship, but the love that we shared for Sierra is what united us. I knew how important it would be for Sierra's upbringing to keep Linda and her family in Sierra's life. Sierra would continue to visit with Linda and her family, even for their summer vacations. Today I have 21 years of sobriety, changing my way of life, not only help myself, but help Sierra as well. I hope that my journey can be a great example for Sierra and to teach her that she can overcome any obstacles that she may face. Since the reunification, I have always tried to instill in Sierra that it's never too late to reshape your life. Today, Linda and I continue to have a bonding relationship and have become friends. Sierra views Linda as her godmother, stepmother, and I'm proud of who I am today. I am a full-time mom with employment for the past 20 years, helping families to overcome their obstacles and barriers.
My name is Linda Mitchell. Although I had 3 children of my own, I had the love and desire to care for children. Over 19 years of foster parent, I've had over 40 children in my home. In fostering children, I loved them all, but my heart was in fostering the girls. After many years, I was blessed with Sierra. Sierra came to me at the age of 5 months. She remained in my home until she was 7. During this time, there were many ups and downs. At first, her birth family was upset that I had their daughter. They felt that I was taking on the role as Sierra's mother. In the beginning, there were supervised visits, which were hard on everybody. Over time, Mary, her birth mom, and I started to connect with one another. We would talk about the things Sierra liked, her strengths, share pictures, communicate back and forth to make for an easier transition. Mary agreed that keeping me in the picture was important for Sierra's continued success. Although Sierra loved both families, it was difficult for her to go back home. I reassured her that she would always be welcomed in our family, and to this day, that continues to be so. My relationship with Sierra and her mom, Mary, continued to build and grow. Mary would call me for support with Sierra when she was having challenges. I would attend the various activities and events, including graduation and the graduation party. Through the years, I was able to assist in the growth of Sierra's spiritual upbringing and empower her to read and attend school and be the woman she continues to be. Sierra is now 22 years old, and even now, Mary and I continue to encourage her. Over time, with the love of children and families, I have been able to take the experiences learned and utilize in my role as a family support partner since 2008. More recently, in the last 3 years, working as a foster family support partner, I have had the privilege of being able to work with foster families and helping to reunify children back in the biological family.
So now let's talk about barriers. What have you faced? We understand that resource families may have concerns, and we honor those. Some common concerns may be that the contact may hurt the child, or that the contact is too hard on the child, or maybe concerns about personal safety of self and family members. Maybe you dislike what the parents did. Or maybe there's a concern that the child won't attach to you or your foster family if birth family is allowed. Maybe not wanting to associate with people that hurt children. And we get it. Your concerns are important. It's always important that we keep the safety of children and the safety of our resource families foremost in our decisions. Birth parents also have strong feelings towards resource families. Birth parents are initially angry or deny that they did anything wrong. They may be in shock or embarrassed. They may feel that they are being judged. The Office of Children's Services works with the birth parents to help them take responsibility for their actions and to become motivated to make the needed changes for their home to be safe enough to return their children. Parents will sometimes be angry at the foster parent because they are part of the system. They may be jealous and angry with you for having their children in your home while they have to be judged unfit. It might seem unfair that birth parents are angry with you for taking care of their child, but birth parents struggle with many different issues that cause them not to have very good coping or problem-solving skills. Don't take these feelings personally. Think of it as a process. Where someone starts is not where they always end up. If birth parents can work through their strong feelings and resource families can be supportive, the resource family may become a source of parenting information and possible support after children have returned home. Birth families and foster families working together make it better for the child.
I think it breaks down when the child starts and may call the foster parent mom. You know, that's a big trigger, and so there has to be an understanding. I think it's one of the first thing the birth parent will say is, you know, my child better not call you mom. I'm my child's mom, or I'm my child's dad. So you got to be very clear and say, you're absolutely correct. And what do you want your child to call me? One parent was upset with me, called me, witch, but it starts with a B, said, called me that for a while, but she didn't trust me. She didn't trust me. She was fighting me because even though I was nice, she thought I had some motive of trying to take her child, even though her child was a teenager. I think she was testing me to see how far I would go. And I just hung in there with her, and I said, you can call me that if you want to, but, I know you're upset, and you have every right to be upset. You want your child home, and you know what? She wants to go home, so what can we do? And I think when I started saying, what can we do to help your child go home, that started to work. That's one trigger. Another trigger is, cutting hair, changing anything about the child's appearance without the mom's or the dad's permission. And I think that's where a lot of foster parents might break down a little bit. The relationship with the birth parent is when even though they can do a lot of things like buy certain clothes and everything, and they can do that, you still need to give birth parents some control, some say-so in taking care of their kids. Our children coming into care is not to punish the parents, it's because the parents have needs. They have needs, and they need for people to help them. And so to help them is to help give them some opportunities to parent their children while their kids are in foster care. Once I started doing that, and I'd go to the parent and say, what do you think? This happened at school. What do you think? Or do you want to go to school with me? And so that the counselor can talk to you. That was a big trust building. My role, I think, as a foster parent is supporting the birth parent and being a parent.
Characteristics that promote successful partnership. Here are a few that we encourage you to consider: empathy, respect, honesty, trust, commitment, flexibility, and open communication. Now let's look at some engagement strategies, initial stages. Face-to-face contact. Your message should be, I genuinely care about your child and his or her well-being. I am on your team. We also encourage you to answer questions honestly. And don't be afraid to ask about their child. The parent is the expert on knowing their child, so treat them like one. Also establish rules of conversation. For example, times and days for calls should be agreed upon. Don't be scared to set healthy boundaries when it comes to building a healthy relationship with the bio parents. Non-face-to-face contact. Telephone contact between parents within 48 hours of placement is encouraged. By phone, letter, or email, introduce yourself to the parent, who you are, what your goal is for their child. Remind them that they have not been replaced, and you can even tell them your child misses you. Keep a journal of activities of the children and share with the birth family via mail or email. Take pictures of the child's activities and share these with the birth family. Engagement strategy supporting reunification. Respect birth parents and be compassionate. Encourage visitation and regular contact. Communicate with the family regularly if possible, and remember that safe reunification is best for the children.
She was 9 when she went into foster care. It was heartbreaking, but the truth is that she needed to be there because I wasn't well. Mentally, I wasn't well. I had 2 children. I had a son who was 5 years older than Leah, but he passed away in 1996 on Memorial Day. And I was in and out of mental hospitals often, suicide attempts, depression. I started using drugs and alcohol.
Donna's parental rights were terminated, and usually when parental rights are terminated, the goal for the youth is not looking back, but moving forward. In this situation, we took a look back and wanted to look at that reunification could be a possibility for Leah. When I first met Leah, she was in a Casey Family Services foster home.
I didn't have much freedom. People didn't trust me.
I think initially Leah really thought she would remain in care. She would turn 18, sign on voluntary services with the department, and remain in contact with her dad. I wasn't aware that she was having contact with her mother prior to my connection with her, but I do know that she really wasn't talking to me about going and living with her mother. It was really more of the plan that she thought the other adults then were thinking would be best for her.
Her father used to bring her around every 2 weeks, and he would just give me his car and just let me take her anywhere I wanted to. We would go to the movies, we'd go shopping, we'd go down the Willows, we'd walk on the beach. As much as I didn't like doing it behind DSS's back, had to. I wanted to see my child.
The reality is, many of our youth who are told they can't see their family, they see them. And why not help them build those relationships instead of keeping them apart? And in the end, they're going to have those connections, and they just may not be as healthy and successful if they don't get the support that they really need in the beginning stages of renewing their bond.
You going to be around for Thanksgiving?
The permanency teaming model is a model that Casey has been using with a lot of the youth that have entered Casey foster homes. But the one thing that really stands out for me when I speak with the kids is emphasizing that the youth has a voice. So that's where I start. Leah provided me names of all the people that she wanted in her team. I fortunately was able to talk to her biological father, who was able to connect me with her biological mother.
She just asked me who I wanted to be on my team, and I told her I wanted my Aunt Ava, my Uncle Jim, my grandfather, my grandmother, my father.
So it was really just picking up the phone and connecting with a relative that's already been involved in Leah's life to reach out and see if there's anyone else he thought would be an important family member, but specifically asking about Leah's mother and if she wouldn't mind calling me or if she was okay if I called her.
I was always hoping that I'd see my mom one day.
Nobody ever called me until Mary Louise McKenna called me and asked me if I wanted to get back to being with my daughter.
I was actually very excited, but I was nervous too because I didn't know what I was going to get on the other line. I didn't know if she would be receptive.
It was probably the best day of my life is when she called me and asked me if I wanted to reunify with Leah. What you working on?
Homework for Miss Papa.
Leah's first team meeting was large. A lot of her family members attended, but prior to the meeting there was a lot of prep work that happened. I called everyone on the team individually. I met with them individually. I wanted them to just know where Leah was today, but also for them to be prepared for when we all came together and talked and their first time seeing Leah in a long time.
I remember the team meeting we had here. My mom we had a big cookout and everybody came and we ate, we talked.
It was exciting to everybody, not just myself, but my whole family was very excited about it.
The work that had to happen in order for Leah to reunify with her mother was actually just building their relationship. There was so much time that had passed that we felt like it was so important for them to just spend time together. I think the key components of this being so successful is because we all communicated on how visits were going, how Leah was doing, and all aspects of her life.
The foster family that she was with before reunification were very nice. They would bring her here, they'd pick her up when she had to go home. They would tell me what to watch out for, and you know, like Leah is ADD, So they try to give me some strategies on how to deal with some of the ADD issues.
In their lives, at the time of discussion of reunification, Leah and Donna were ready. They were ready to go. Donna did a lot of work to be where she was when I picked up the phone and she answered. So the work that had to happen was just really building on their relationship. I asked Leah if she'd be interested in attending a wilderness program through Casey, and initially she wasn't keen on the idea, like, what, no showers, what are you talking about, what do I have to do? But after a lot of talk, she agreed that this would be a cool idea as long as her mother could join her. So I asked Donna, and her response was, absolutely, when can I go, how will I get there? And as soon as Leah knew that her mom was on board, she was on board. And it was a really cool experience because there were a lot of challenges at camp in the wilderness. If you're lifting a canoe and there are 4 other people ahead of you, they stop and they wait. It just teaches a lot of how it is to be able to depend on other people in a healthy way. And I felt like it really made them even stronger through that process. When Leah reunified, what the day looks like is we want it as normal as possible. So is it normal to have a social worker when you come home? I don't think it is. So instead of being present, I was their cheerleader. So I knew it was happening, but I was behind the scenes because it was their day. So the day for me was to make it as comfortable as possible and really have the foster family be part of that transition too.
The first day I came home and slept in my own room was fantastic. I loved it. I had a new bed. I actually had a bed. I love it.
I had no idea picking up the phone and having Donna reunify with her daughter would also have Donna reunify with her entire family.
But having her back has brought them more around. I see them more, I talk to them more, they're more involved with my daughter. And any issues or joyous things that we have in our lives, they're there.
It just shows how important it is to pick up the phone and make those phone calls and listen to the youth that you're working with and giving people second chances.
I'm in a great place right now. I have my daughter home, I have a car on the road, I have a roof over my head, and I couldn't be any happier.
I am very happy to say that Leah is a freshman in college. She always said she wanted to be a cosmetologist, so she is following her dreams and she is going to school for what she wants to go for, and that makes me so happy and proud of her and of Donna to be able to see that they have and continue to be very successful with each other.
I am a successful person because I'm doing what I want to do in my life, and I'm happy with it.
I believe there's a lot of parents out there that have lost their children and lost their parental rights, but it can happen. You can get your children back. I'm an example of it. I had my parental rights taken away from me, and I have my daughter home with me today.
Now let's talk about the importance of visits. Visits help the child know that their parents are alive. It helps rebuild important connections. It helps the child develop identity. It shows the child birth parents care. It shows the child's siblings are all right. It may dispel the child's belief that they are bad or at fault for the placement, and may also help explain why they aren't living with their parents. It also helps the child see birth parents more realistically, and it gives the child hope of reunification, or helps the child see why reunification is not possible. It also helps adopted children feel loved by people from the past. Now let's look at some engagement strategies for visitation. Face-to-face contact. Make sure that your foster child is dressed appropriately, clean, well-groomed, and healthy when visiting with their family. Understand parents give their children candy and other things to show their love. If possible, transport children to and from visits. You can also offer to supervise visits in a normal setting such as the park, library, or restaurant. And finally, even provide games or activities for your child to do while visiting their family. Engagement strategies continued for non-face-to-face visitation. You can establish regular phone contact between the child and their family, and you could also encourage the child to regularly send letters, drawings, pictures via mail or email to their parent. If possible, you can also utilize Skype, Google Hangouts, Facebook, FaceTime to allow video chat between child and parent. And if safety is not an issue, advocate to the social worker about arranging a face-to-face on an occasion basis if possible. Engagement strategies, medical and educational responsibilities. Face-to-face contact. You can invite the birth parents to school meetings such as the IAP, teacher conferences, open houses, award ceremonies, holiday programs, and other school activities. You can work on child development milestones with the parents. You can also include parents in doctor appointments and keep them updated on medical issues. Make sure school staff or medical staff know who the parent is and to include them in the school discussions. Engagement strategies, medical and educational responsibilities. When there is no face-to-face contact, you can save notes, schoolwork or art projects, school pictures, and other school valuables. You can also mail them to the parents. You can include parents in their child's development progress and medical concerns through mail or phone. This could include videos or pictures of child's first activities or important milestones. Parents should know ahead of time of major medical and dental procedures. Provide the parent with a copy of medical records such as immunization records or test results. Engagement strategies for siblings, family members, and important individuals. Ask the social worker to provide contact information regarding other relatives and maybe siblings. Connect with foster parents or family members who may have other siblings to schedule separate meetings and visits. Facilitate the child's involvement in attending their church, continuing contact with old friends, or participating in extracurricular activities. This gives them a sense of belonging and can also help them thrive in your home. Engagement strategy, siblings, non-face-to-face contact. You can introduce yourself to the family members as a child's caregiver and stress you are on the same page. Encourage a child to write letters to extended family members or siblings. Arrange for the child and siblings to connect via social media or FaceTime. And you can also allow the child to have private phone calls with appropriate and safe family members. What are other creative ways that you can think of or maybe you've encountered when it comes to non-face-to-face contact with family members or extended relatives or maybe their siblings? So now let's look at engagement strategies when termination of services or parental rights have happened. You can allow the child to maintain contact with their parents, such as through visits or invitations to special events if deemed safe. You can also maintain communication with other family members and siblings, and also work with your child in making an adoptive family tree. I would highly encourage the birth family and the child to work on a life book together. Engagement strategies, non-face-to-face contact. You can help your child make a life book and utilize the parent families to provide historical information on the child. You can also encourage parents to send in mementos and pictures for your child to include in their life book. You can encourage the child to send regular photos, cards, and letters to the bio parents' family to keep them included in the child's life.
When you are a foster parent, you open your home and your life to children in need of stability. But when children move on, there can be a profound sense of loss. International foster care expert, author, and father Dr. John DeGarmo spoke in Springfield recently at a Center for Human Development sponsored event addressing this very issue and the need for more foster parents nationally. Carolee McGrath has more.
So I've been working with the foster parents of CHD, great program, and talking to them about feelings of grief and loss, just as you said. So many people say to me, Dr. John, I can't do what you do. It would hurt too much to give the kids back, which I believe you actually said to me just a moment ago. And I tell them that's exactly how it's supposed to be. Children in foster care need stability, they need security, but what they need more than anything else is for me to love them unconditionally. They come to my house and I love them with all that I have. So that when they do leave my home, yes, absolutely, my heart breaks, it rips, I cry, but I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the opportunity to cry for these kids because I might be the first person who has ever cried for that child. I might be the first person who's ever loved that child so much that I experience those feelings, those deep feelings of grief. It's like losing a member of my own family, because it is. When these children come to my home, they become a member of my family. There's no adoptive, there's no biological, there's no foster child label. They're all my children, they're my family, and I love them unconditionally.
Let's talk about your family, though. You have a big family. And,
well, I do a little bit, yeah.
And of course, you have fostered many children over the years. Tell us about your family.
Well, I have 3 children biologically. I've adopted 3 children from foster care. I have had 4 failed adoptions, so I've had that side of it as well. And I've had over 55 kids come through my family during the past 15 years, as young as 27 hours of age and as old as 18 years of age, and everything in between.
And how has that worked with your children when you started to bring kids in? How does the family dynamic change? How do you act when these kids come in? And how do you instruct your kids to act?
That's a great question. So we've been doing it for about 16 years. My oldest child is 21. So for my own kids, it's their norm. It's their norms, normal lifestyle. When a child is placed in my home, these children are scared. They don't want to be in my home. Yeah, I can provide that stability and that security and wonderful opportunities. But at the end of the day, they're taken from their mother, their father, sometimes their siblings, or stuffed animals, or toys, everything they know, sometimes late at night, without any explanation. And they're thrust into my home without any explanation, with questions. Why am I here? When do I go home? When do I see mommy next? Is it my fault that daddy hits me? Whatever it may be. And they're terrified. They're terrified, and they cry themselves to sleep. So there is anxiety just being placed into a foster home because it's a time of great uncertainty. So I often meet that uncertainty and anxiety with just tremendous patience, compassion, understanding, love, and time. We greet them and we introduce ourselves as Mr. John and Miss Kelly, my wife, does. We give them a tour of the home. We allow them to play with their own children and some of the animals. And then we just surround them in as much love as we can give them, answer their questions. But then again, we understand they are afraid.
But do you try to just make them part of the family as quickly as possible? Because I'm sure like your own kids would be like, wait, he's treating him better than treating me. Like you try not to make that differentiation, I'm sure.
No, there's no differentiation. And in fact, my own kids will instantly start playing with them. Or my older children will feed the babies. They love the babies. My younger kids may play with the younger ones. It's a wonderful melting pot, if you will. And we have been blessed to have all shapes, colors, and sizes come through the home.
And what's the end goal? I mean, we talk about, loss and grief. So you could have a child for a month, a year, and 2 years?
Longer. The end goal of foster care is reunification, when the birth parents are able to take care of their case plan and have a wonderful opportunity of reunifying with their child. That's always the end goal. The parents are able to go through their parenting classes. And so for so many biological parents, birth parents, they are suffering from their own pain, their own abuse. 2 of the 3 children I've adopted are 3rd generation foster care, which means their parents and their grandparents were also in foster care, so the cycle just continued. It's generational. So they're suffering from their own pain, and they don't know how to parent. So we help them. We co-parent with them to help them parent their own children. And then there's reunification. But sadly, for so many children, that doesn't happen. And so many children age out of the system. There are so many children in foster care right now, due mainly to the opioid crisis. Many states are seeing their numbers double, in fact.
Let's talk about the shortage of foster families. Obviously, we're dealing with that up here in Massachusetts and all over the country. You're from Georgia. What are the numbers looking like in your state?
Where I live, in the state of Georgia, there were 7,000 children in foster care 2 years ago, and now at the end of 2018, we're looking at 17,000 children, mainly due to the opioid crisis. When these parents who are addicted to opiates, when they're being placed in hospitals, when they're being placed in jail, and when they're dying, where do these children go? They're being placed into a foster care system that is struggling to contain these children. There's simply not enough homes. Foster parenting is a very, very challenging job, and there are so many myths and misconceptions about foster parenting that I'm trying to bring awareness to.
All right, so let's talk about some of those myths. I mean, what do you think that people, like, their first reaction is when you say, you know, I'm a foster parent?
You must be crazy. You know what? It's kind of true. You got to be a little bit crazy to do what we do because it's not a normal lifestyle. It's very full on, 24 hours, 7 days a week, but it's so rewarding. Sure, it's the hardest thing I've done, but it's the most rewarding thing I've done. Some people believe that foster parents are in it for the money, so to speak. Absolutely not. We get reimbursement. There's a reimbursement, but it's a very small reimbursement. It helps us to cover the food and perhaps the diapers and clothing. But I'm rich in love. I'm rich in memories. I'm rich in adventure. Those are some of the misconceptions that people have about foster parents. Some believe that the children in foster care are in homes that are unsafe. You know, I feel just the opposite. I have found foster parents here in Massachusetts and across the nation are people who just want to help a child in need.
And let's talk a little bit about kids who are teenagers, because I think, as a mother of two teenagers, I think that is probably the most heartbreaking age, because by the time you're at that age, you probably don't trust anybody, right? And you probably don't want to give somebody like me a hug, you know, who walking in the door after a bad situation. How do you encourage, number one, families to open up their homes to teenagers, and what kind of hope do they have, like, to come out of that situation?
We just had two teenage boys in our house, both 17 years of age. Both were homeless, and we helped them, brought them in our home, and we helped them with social skills, with living skills, preparing them to go on to life after high school. But for so many kids, no child wants to be a foster child. No child wants to be in the system. They all want to get out. There's a misconception about children in foster care. So it is more difficult, I have found, with the teenagers because they have that anger, they have those identity issues, and of course they're also struggling with their own identity and future, and sure, issues of trust, issues of attachment. If they've gone from home to home to home, who do they trust? They don't know me. I'm a stranger, and they may resist attachment as well. So it can be a very difficult time, but it can also be a very rewarding time too. I watched two children along with my own daughter. So we had three seniors last year in our household, and it was really fun to watch. Really fun to watch.
And those kids are going off to college next year?
All three of them are, yeah. Now, sadly, the statistics for youth in foster care are grim. 55% who age out of foster care will drop out of school. 65% will end up homeless. 75% will end up in jail at some point. And the system just continues. So foster parents like myself were able to hopefully break those cycles.
And how do you encourage people up in Massachusetts, you know, to really consider this as a choice for their family?
You know, it has been a wonderful venture. Every child that's come through my home, every single child has made me a better husband, a better parent, a better member of the community, and a better person overall. It's been the most rewarding thing I've ever done. Sure, there are challenges every day, but my own family has been strengthened. I believe my own biological children and adoptive children are also have become better people as well. They've all learned, hopefully, the opportunity and the need to serve other people. So if anybody's considering becoming a foster parent, I encourage them to contact CHD or a Department of Family and Children's Services or whatever it may be. And it can be just a life-changing thing, not only for the child, but for the foster parent as well.
All right, thank you so much for coming in here and sharing your story with us today and words of encouragement.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
What I would say to a foster parent, especially one that's not has not been a part of shared parenting yet, or is hesitant about doing shared parenting, is that we need to stop. And you know, I was 17 years as a foster parent. We need to stop thinking of our job as substituting for a parent, but in being in a supportive place for a birth parent. And we have to look at ourselves. Foster parents need to look at themselves as we are different than what would be parenting your own children. Because when we start parenting other people's children, we've got to be more creative. We've got to think outside the box. And thinking outside the box is, how do I help this child feel their parent close to them? That is our job. It's not to say your parent did this wrong or that wrong. We need to say your parent does this right and that right, and your parent cares about you in this way. And these are positive things about your parents. Because when we do that, we're saying to the child, you're positive. You have strengths. And I think a lot of people don't understand that what we say about the birth parents reflects back to the child. So I would look at ourselves as, what are we doing as a foster parent to include the birth parent so the child can feel us all surround them. And then the child can be a child, which is what this child's needed for a long time.
Youth in and out of home care need positive relationships and connections with the people in their lives, and collaborative relationships are also necessary to achieve successful outcomes in child welfare. Resources are important to help you demonstrate and collaborate with the parents and develop relationships that are healthy between birth parents and yourself. This can promote family engagement, sibling connections, and long-term relationship development and preservation for youth in and out of home care. We hope you enjoyed this training, and please let us know if you have any questions. Thank you.